Fragments of Silicon, guaranteed to not waste your time with news that we don't have.
All right, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host Adam. Joining as always, our Galaxy Petty Fan. Let's see. Let us get to the news. Galax, why don't you start us off this week?
I got a haircut today.
Oh man! Did they cut all of them or just a few?
Most. So yeah, that'll be good because even though the last few days have been cooler, it is, summer. And I always hate it when my hair ends up sticking to my face after I do anything and it gets me sweaty. Still waiting for that new case on the hard drive that needed a new case and stuff, so hopefully that'll be soon. I got a general time frame for when my company is going to be moving our office location. Apparently it'll be in early September. They said shortly after Labor Day, but who knows? It's still somewhat tentative, but we're working on getting rid of stuff that we don't need to bring with us, and I'm probably going to have to keep a couple of boxes of stuff in my car for a little while as they transition. But let's see. I'm preparing for the Splatfest this weekend. I decided to join Team Love out of Love, Money, or Fame. It was not particularly hard. The argument for money was not very strong, I don't think. And other than that, that's most of what I've been doing with video games this week. So I think that's about it.
All right, Petty, it's time for your tales of the week. God help us all.
Actually, things got a lot better. So for any of you who caught the tire fire that was last week, my dad finally apologized to Mom on their anniversary. I know, fireworks and dancing commence. So yeah, they've now been back to normal. I don't need to bash both their skulls together.
You're still going to talk to your mom's
I'm going to see
daughter?
about it, but since Mom's has her head less up her ass now, for obvious reasons, we're going to try and talk to her one more time and see if she does it on her own.
Mm-hmm.
Because if she does it of her own volition, then she can't be mad at me about it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So yeah, everything has been much, much better. We had a little bit of a, both network issue and a little scare with Luna on Sunday. She decided she did not want to take her medication. We actually had to force feed it to her. Our only guess is on why is either she was mad we were gone most of the day, or she. I had to give her medication on Saturday, and the way I usually do it is mix the soft treat with the hard treat. And I don't know if she's wanting that again and just being grumpy about it, because I don't know, my cat's weird. But yeah, everything seems to be calm on that front, so hooray. And now there's only a mild issue with my network connection stuff. I think I've narrowed it down to possibly storms, because we did have a storm roll through on Sunday. So it's possible there could be water getting into the junction box, which, if the issue arises again, it's probably what I'm leaning towards, and I'll call the cable company. Because yeah, if I call them, usually when the issue's not occurring, they're just going to charge me for a service call and do jack all, because cable company. And I guess we had a little bit of a weirdness last night. Some person knocked on our door saying they were from a TV company, but when I tried to talk, because we have a video doorbell, they just kind of left when I tried to ask them who they were with. They just said she's the TV girl, and just went back to her car. And I couldn't really make out any logos on her lanyard or whatever, so I don't know, homie. If I disappear next week, that might be why. As far as gaming and I guess quasi gaming, over the weekend I got one of the, in the West they're called the Vital Hero, but basically the Vital bracelets, because they were on sale at Walmart for $30. So I figured, why not? And it's been pretty alright. I do have a few more of the like little dim cards that let you change Digimon on it coming in the mail. So
Are you able to do enough exercise-related stuff to make it,
Luckily, it has a simple pedometer in it, so I just need to shake my wrist for it to think I'm doing exercise. But yeah,
there was a version of it that definitely like read your pulse and stuff.
Oh, it still does, but it doesn't. It just uses that to detect if it's on you.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if the B does that, but that's definitely what I'm going to look into getting next, since I don't hate this, so... Because my biggest fear was I just jump into getting the B, drop over $100 on it. I don't like it, and the person who I buy it from doesn't want it back, so I'm basically stuck with it, on my Digimon.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of mixed things about how easy it is or hard it is to get your vitals into a good place.
Yeah.
But I think using the smartphone app can actually... Although, don't they only... I know they changed apps at some point.
Yeah,
so
it's now the VB Arena. So I did lose some stuff for my Vital Hero, but it's like... Apparently one of them was Tamer Rank, which wasn't even used. And the other was Special Mission, which people kept bugging out anyway to get free trophies, so they decided to scrap it.
Okay.
So...
I just remembered something about on the app being a good way to get points.
Oh yeah, you could easily screw with the app, especially on Android. And then in other gaming related stuff, I think I beat Mario Odyssey. I just didn't do the post game of it, which, hooray! There's a lot of post game to that game, so I'm probably just going to take it in chunks because...
Yeah, it's not hard to get to the end of Mario Odyssey.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Completion and then...
Super completion.
Completion and then the, last challenge are hard.
To put it lightly, yes.
Completion, even then the completion, a lot of that is just bullshit. Like, oh, hey, I hope you like jump roping 100 times.
Yeah. And then I guess the other big thing is this Sunday I have a Digimon tournament. Luckily, it is going to be at 2 my time, so as long as we don't somehow get 60 players, it shouldn't be a problem for the show.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Usually we're done by 5, even if we take a little bit of some time setting up. So... if anything happens, I'll let you know. It shouldn't, though. And I guess that's it from me.
All right, it's my go.
Yep.
Right. Let's see. Yesterday I had my yearly eye exam, and that went fairly typically.
Do you
Like,
still have eyes?
yes. Yes, I do. Like, but apparently they're stretched.
Ah,
Like,
you too.
yeah, like nearsightedness is apparently caused by eyes being too long.
Yup.
I didn't. So I was warned about the dangers of retinal tears and detachments.
Yep, that is not fun.
Has that happened to you?
We think it's starting to happen with my dad.
Hmm.
And my sister, because of her cerebral palsy, is more pronounced on her right side. She is starting to have some of that with her right eye.
Yeah.
To the point she is actually legally blind without her glasses.
Right.
So yeah, not fun. 0 out of 10, would not recommend.
Yeah. Like, but apparently my eyes are actually doing a bit better than last time.
Mm-hmm.
My last pair of glasses were really bad.
Like Coke bottle bad, or
Like, my eyes were a blurry mess bad. Like, my eyes had a improvement this year. Which is,
improvement is good.
yeah. Like, though a bit concerned about my insurance because they're doing things and not telling me
Oh, that's not good.
because, well, it's like, because apparently, so my insurance is, well, that leads me to a dentist. I had to cancel my dentist appointment later this month because apparently my dentist office is having some sort of fight with my insurance because they're not, I don't know, paying out. They were kind of light on the details. I suspect because it's a sensitive matter that is ongoing, couldn't really, confidentiality sort of stuff.
I guess, but that seems kind of weird to me, but sure.
Like, all I know is it's a big enough problem where they had to put a hold on everyone who had had that has this particular insurance or sub insurance. Like, the vision and the dental is handled by like subcontractors.
Yeah.
So they were like, you can still pay out of pocket, which no, that
Yeah.
is not happening.
I wish I could pay out of pocket.
Like, well, I mean, there is that, but it's like, I have insurance for this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not my fault you're having a row with them. I don't know the details here, but hopefully they get it sorted out, or I find a new dentist. That's how that works. Like, might be a pain in reestablishing things, but I already got the major thing I needed done with my teeth this year, so this was just like the follow-up cleaning, or
Mm-hmm.
and as far as I can tell, my teeth are fine, so not too concerned about that. More future use of this dentist office. So I'll give him a call in October. Hopefully, if it hasn't cleared up by then, I'll probably hunt elsewhere. Right. So, with that in mind, I think that'll about do it for the news. And merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And joining us this week is Andre Chagas Silva of Asteristic Game Studio.
Yeah, it's kind of mouthful.
I'm like, well, how are you doing tonight?
I'm okay. Been working a lot on different projects, so I'm really tired.
Yeah. Is this a full-time thing for you?
Yeah, I'm a full-time game developer.
Okay. So with that in mind, we shall roll into our opening question, and that is, what got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
So basically, I live in Brazil, right?
Mm.
And when I was a kid, there was a. I'm not sure if this was like a common thing in the rest of the world, but in Brazil, when CD-ROMs became a thing, you could go to the place to buy like magazines with CDs on them. And one of these CDs had a very early version of Click and Play, which was a game making tool. I think this was in '97. I was like 10 years old or 9 years old or something like that. And I kept messing with it like all day long, just making stupid games. I even finished the game back then that I saved on the floppy disk. Then I lost it forever because floppy disks don't last forever, right? So that's how I got into it. And every now and then I kept like messing with easy tools like Multimedia Fusion or the Games Factory, which is by the same company of Click and Play. Then Game Maker Studio. And then I finally, in 2013, I started making a game by myself. And Steam opened up for small developers using the Greenlight program. Mm-hmm. So I applied for it with Dreaming Sarah.
So Dreaming Sarah was your first project.
Yeah, my first like paid project that I actually sold. Before that was just like tests and like studying the tool. It was more like a hobby instead of. I had no idea you could make money like making games like this. But when Steam opened up for the Greenlight program, and anyone could put a game there, but back then you had to. There was like a voting system where you put your game on the Greenlight program and you had to wait until your game had enough votes so you could get in, right?
I remember this.
Mm-hmm. This, but it didn't mean that if your game got like not enough votes, it wouldn't go in, because the more games they put in, the least like went up, like the line of people waiting went ahead. So even if your game didn't have like a ton of votes, you would end up getting.
Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing you were one of the highly voted on games or projects.
No, not at all. People started making comparisons, like saying I was ripping off a game called Saira, which is by the developer of Knit, I think. And just because the name was similar, so some people were like mad at me and stuff like that. But like I said, no matter how many votes you had, you end up getting. So the more games got in, my place on the line was like getting higher and higher, even with less votes.
And how long did it take for you to for Dreaming Sarah to enter Steam?
I think it was a year. I think I put it like probably like either 6 months to a year or something like that. But now you just pay. You just pay once. You pay like I think it's $100, and you get a gamer scene. That's why Steam is full of like weird and crappy games, unfinished games and stuff like that. It's really easy. There's no like QA for Steam or anything. You put anything there.
Yeah. I'm like, what is it? The Greenlight process must sound so alien to those who weren't around for it. Anyway, so putting that aside, what is Dreaming Sarah?
So basically, back in 2012, I think. No, I think it was around 2009. I was playing a game, an RPG Maker game called Yuminiki, which is like about a little girl who's kind of she won't leave her room. So all you can do in the game is sleep. You go to the bed and sleep, and then she starts exploring her own dreams. And I was completely fascinated by that game. I used to like play it every day, find new stuff, and I really wanted try to. And actually, I had the idea for Dreaming Sarah for a long while, but it was like completely different. It was like, have you guys played Ghost Trick? I think so because you posted a thing on the Discord about Ghost Trick, right?
A bit,
And,
yeah.
Yeah.
I
And I had a similar idea to Ghost Trick, like where you Sarah would start the game dead, and she would talk to a guy, and the guy and her had to like make puzzle, and she could like as a ghost mess with stuff and things like. And then Capcom announced Ghost Trick like in the same month, I think, that I had this idea, so I just gave up completely on it, and the
Oof.
game like. Yeah, the game like I put it on a shelf and left it there, and wait until I play Unique, and I say, "Wow, this is perfect for what I wanted for Sarah." So then I started making it.
And how long did it take you to like make the actual game?
I started making it in I think it was 2012, and as soon as I got onto Steam, they also started the early access program for games, and anyone could apply for early access. And no one at the time, no one was exactly certain of what early access meant, because today people only use early access for like live games or MMO RPGs, right? But back then, anyone could apply for an early access game, and it just meant that you could put your game on Steam and people would test them. It was pretty much like a QA. You put your game on Steam, people like uh, had input on the development of your game. So I did that because it was quicker to release, and since Valve let anyone do it, I just put it there. And I think I completed the full game in 2015. Then I released the full game on Steam. So it was around like what, 4 years, I think, or 3 years, something around those lines. It took me so long because I was still learning everything. You know, I was making the game and learning everything while I made it.
And what would you say were the hardest lessons learned from that experience?
Well, the most important things to learn when making a game and putting on Steam, stuff like that, is you have to finish the game. You have to like you learn so much by finishing the game and like putting it on Steam, because then you get access to Steamworks, which is the tool Steam developers use to like implement Steam on their games and stuff like that. You know, so the biggest lesson I learned when making Dreamy Sarah was like finishing the game can like open a door for you to learn so much more, because I know so many people who get stuck making their game, because I know it's really hard to like finish a game, and they leave this part untouched. They don't get to the part where you actually go to Steamworks and implement Steam on your game and release and take care of your store on Steam, and do the assets and stuff like that. There's so much stuff on Steam that you still have to learn after you finish your game. So I think this is one of my biggest lessons to learn.
Like, well, at least they were learned, I presume. Like, you know.
Sorry,
like,
what? I didn't hear.
I presume that the lessons were taken to heart, because my next question is, how does your development processes work these days? Since we are talking about a span of time that's nearly 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, after Dreaming Sarah, I started making another game, which was Dandy and Rainy, which inspired by the Super Nintendo game Goof Troop with Goofy and his son. I used to love that game, and I wanted to take a go at it, so I started making it. But it was like I still wasn't experienced enough where I could like sit down by myself and finish the game from start to end. So I took a long time, like just drawing stuff for it over and over. The initial art for it was awful. The colors were awful. Everything was awful, and then I kept drawing and drawing and drawing. And in the end, it took me like from 2015 to 2019, 90. Sorry. around that just to like finish the game. So I learned a lot, and thanks to Dream Insider, because Dream Insider was still selling, and I was putting Dream Insider on every bundle. So a lot of people have Dream Insider on their Steam game list, and they have no idea what it is or where they got it. But I put every single bundle that show up to me. I put Dream Insider there. Even a YoCast bundle or something like that.
I mean, if it works, it works, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so when did Rodalikia Games come into the picture?
I'm sorry, I didn't listen to you.
When did Rodalikia Games come into the picture?
Okay. So the problem I had when making Dreaming Sarah and Ending Ready was because I used since back then, since I was little, I used like easy game making tools. I don't consider myself a programmer, even though I can program on like the tool I use currently, which is called Construct 2 and 3. I can use it, but it's because it's a little easier to use. And when you make a game in a tool like that, there's no easy way for you to release on consoles because you're stuck. Because the actual language that I make games in is JavaScript. So you can just take a JavaScript game and put it on a Nintendo Switch or something like that, or Xbox or PS4 or whatever. So Ratalaika, they devised a tool that can get Construct 2 and 3 games and port it to consoles. I think there are around like 3 other companies who have some kind of tool like this. So when they reached out to me, I can't remember exactly how did I meet them, but I think I heard about them because since there were only 3 companies that worked this way, I heard about them. I contacted them, showed them Dandy and Randy back then, and then we made a contract, and they ended up looking at Dreaming Sarah also and also releasing it. Yeah. And since then, every new game that I make in Construct, I usually have to go through them. They publish and port it for me.
Oh, I get. I mean, it's good that it's been working out for you. I mean, we used to get a lot of games from Rodalikia. I think it's where Dreaming Sarah came from.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I actually worked with them also because since they are the only ones porting Construct 2 and 3, sometimes they close a contract with someone who has a Construct 2 game, but they're not like very good at programming using Construct. So they send me the project, and I have to adapt it for releases on consoles. So it releases on consoles because each console has a tiny little thing that you have to adapt. For instance, on the Nintendo Switch, the A, B buttons are reversed. So I have to actually go into the game and program that because I have to check if it's the Switch, the A, B buttons on the menus are switched around. And the Xbox, you have to have your login name on the main menu of any game on Xbox. I say any game, but it's usually only the smaller people. Big people don't have to do anything they want. But we do have to have the user login name on the main screen of the game and stuff like that, you know. So I worked a bit with them.
Good to know. Good to know. I've tried to get them on the show, and they're a bit gun shy about doing an interview. So
I guess so.
It's more, go talk to the developers we work with.
Yeah.
That's the message I've gotten from them every time I ask.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
but I think it's their history is pretty interesting also because they, as far as I know, there was no other people like taking. There's a huge market of games being made in these tools. They also like port. I think they port RPG Maker, Rain Pie, which is a visual novels thing, Construction 1, 2, and much more engines, and they're the only ones doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't speak to that since I'm not too familiar with Construct, if I'm being honest. Like, it's a game engine that comes up sometimes, but Not a whole lot.
Yeah.
I'm
it's
actually
like
trying to leave it right now because since the only way I can make a game and release on consoles is through Ratalaika, I was trying to leave it like I want to learn an actual engine and like maybe release my own stuff, you know. So I started learning Unreal Engine.
Hmm. Though you've also got Wishing Sarah.
Yeah, that's a Game Boy game.
Right. Well, is this an actual Game Boy game, or is it just done in the style of a
No,
Game Boy?
it's an actual Game Boy game. There's a ROM you can. I actually have a Game Boy here with a flash card, so I put it I put it in there.
Yeah.
There's an engine called GB Studio. There's a little like RPG Maker, and you can make your own Game Boy games with it. It's pretty good.
Yeah, we've talked to people who work with GB Studio, and they swear by it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so what's Dreaming Sarah about? I presume that this is the same Sarah from the first game.
Yeah. So basically, it ended up like being a series of games. I never planned for anything like this, but I had so many ideas when making Dreaming Sarah that I couldn't put into the game. So what happened is because I note down everything that I think of for the game. When I finished Dreaming Sarah, I lacked like the expertise to make a ton of things work. So I cut everything that I couldn't make work properly for Dreaming Sarah. I ended up cutting it. So I had the material left. But for Wishing Sarah, the Game Boy one, I just I have no idea. I was just so excited to try GB Studio, so I started drawing like tons of random stuff, everything that popped in my head. I made that whole game in like a month, I think, because GB Studio was so easy to work it. And then there's Awakening Sarah, which is like taking all my ideas from the previous game that I couldn't put in the previous game, and I'm reworking them now.
So I guess this is a good time to talk about Awakening Sarah, which is, I think, the project you are working on right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have two projects right now. I have three projects right now. One which is not mine. I was like being paid to be a programmer for another game, but I'm quitting that soon because I have to focus on Awakening Sarah. I want to finish it, Awakening Sarah by like March next year, hopefully. I even set up the page for Steam for it like I think last month. And Awakening Sarah is like the whole story of Sarah is like I got so inspired by Yuminiki, like the stuff that happens in Yuminiki, because Yuminiki doesn't tell you like there's no story to what's happening or a reason for things to happen, or it's not exactly just everything is so random. There's stuff that's there, and I like that people who play Yuminiki they looked at the stuff there was in the game, and they took their own conclusions. So that's why I try to make in Dreaming Sarah. I put everything that I thought was like either different or either stuff that I was learning to making the in construct shoe in the engine. So like there's a park with a pink moon, a huge pink moon, and she goes around the moon. And this was just like me learning how to make a somewhat like a fake physics thing where you can go around a place, And it's kind of a huge mix of everything I want to learn, everything I want to make, with some crazy ideas I had like noted down, and that's where it came to. But as for the story, I leave it to people to come up with their own stories.
It's up to interpretation, you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, granted, it might be a bit difficult to do that with one of the pieces currently still in development.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really connected. You can play like Dreaming Sarah and come up with your own conclusions, as people have before. Some people play Wishing Sarah by itself and come up with their own conclusions also. Wishing Sarah is a bit more linear. You just follow the story. And Awakening Sarah is like more open-ended, like Dreaming Sarah. But everything you put there is like there's a little reason for it, or there's I even have my own, my own conclusions about everything. But I don't like to impose it over other people.
Fair enough, though. I mean, you are the author of the work, so it would make sense that you would have your own conclusions, but it's not necessarily the case. There are many an author who don't have everything in mind, let's say, right, when they create a work.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so from the footage we're seeing here, it looks like it's going back to being another platforming game, side view.
Yeah, for Awakening Sarah, there are a few parts with like a 3D movement also.
Yeah, like the
Because
eyeballs look 3D there.
yeah, the eyeballs, I had to actually remove those from the trailer and put like a pre-rendered eyeballs there. For the trailer, you won't see the actual like 3D gameplay. I can actually link it to you if you want. Just give me a
Sure.
second.
Yeah, Petty, maybe you can hook that up.
This was like a short test that I really like, so I'm putting this part in the game.
Uh-huh.
Because I updated the construct, and now Dreamy Star was made on Construct 2, and now I'm using Construct 3, and it allows for some like 3D stuff. So I just gave it a shot and started making like 3D areas. So for Awakening Sarah, you're gonna be playing, then you're gonna go into a random area, and it's all gonna be 3D.
I mean,
Reminds
we've heard
me-
worse.
Yeah. Like, this reminds me of, I want to say like a PC adventure game from the 90s, but I don't remember having this much freedom of movement in those.
Mm-hmm.
But
For Wishing Star, the Game Boy one, I actually made a part that it's like based on Phantasy Star for the Master System, where you are like in a fake 3D maze, So you can go like it's like there's a I don't think there's an animation to it. So it's just a bunch of rooms, and every time you move a room, you just the screen just like fades out and in on the right. That place you're looking at, or something like that.
And will there be more to this 3D space as the game goes along?
Yeah, there's gonna be some areas that are 3D, and but I think most of the game will be 2D. So, but you can like walk around in 3D space. There's gonna be like a pop-up hint telling you the controls for the 3D space, so people don't get like confused and stuff like that.
Right.
And you can talk to people. It's the same thing as a 2D. You just like an adventure type of game. You just walk around, talk to people and stuff.
Yeah, I know what this is reminding me of. Paradise Killer.
Oh, yeah, that's
Like-
pretty good.
I'm shocked you are familiar with that.
Oh yeah, I play everything. I play pretty much everything to like even if it's study,
Yeah. Fair enough. So I suppose the next question up is, what is the current state of the game? Like, how far along is it?
I'd say I'm about like 40% done, but only because I have like I said, I was working on another project for another person. But now that I'm leaving it, by the end of the month, I'm gonna be like full time back on Waking Sarah. So I want to finish it by March next year, hopefully.
Okay, and are you still like the solo developer on this?
Yeah, apart from the musician, which is a friend of mine, I don't make the music. I like dabble into make some music. So there's a few compositions of mine that I'm putting, but mostly it's the actual musician who does the music, Anthony.
Okay. Indeed. That is a fairly common refrain we get on the program. Like, the developer in question will develop everything but the music.
Yeah, it's so much. It's so hard. Actually, I have a friend of mine who's an artist, and she makes some art for the game. Everything she takes a look and thinks she's ugly, she goes and like repaints it for me.
That's
But
nice.
apart from them, I do everything.
And let me see here. So there is one more game that we need to talk about at this point, and it is something completely different. Like
Mm-hmm.
just about as different as we could get thematically, I think. And that is Vengeful Guardian Moonrider. Like, so where did this come from?
So basically, I live in Curitiba in Brazil. It's a city called Curitiba. And when I came here in 2016 with my girlfriend, now wife, we ended up meeting some other developers here in the city. And
Mhm.
one of the developers was the creator of Oniken, Odalus,
Yeah.
Blazing Chrome,
Yeah,
Joy Masher Studios.
we've
And
had them. We had them on the
oh
show
yeah,
around the time that the Blazing Chrome came out.
yeah. And we actually live close to each other. I live like 4 blocks away from him.
Neat.
And we used to hang out a lot. And I remember like talking to them. But I met them and started hanging out with them because there's like a developer hangout thing that we do here.
Mhm.
And when they were finishing Blazing Chrome, Danilo, the creator, he had a prototype for Moonrider that he did by himself, and the publisher liked it. So he made it on Construct. For Blazing Chrome, he made it on Game Maker Studio 2 with Yuri. Who was a programmer for Blazing Chrome. But for Moonrider, he was using Construct 3. And I basically was all a huge coincidence. I'm very versed in Construct 3, so he took me in to make the game with him.
Like,
And he drew the art, and I programmed everything.
was there a particular reason why he was using Construct 3 for this project?
Danilo has the exactly same backstory as I have with game development. He started like early with click and play and stuff like that. Like easy tools to make games and stuff like that. And even Odalus and Oniken, he used Multimedia Fusion, which is the same by the same developers of Click and Play, which I use in '97.
And now that I think about it, I think that came up in our interview. It's been a few years.
So yeah, it's the same backstory exactly. But he, instead of like focusing on programming while he grew up, he focused on the art. So even though he could program a little like in Construct 2 back then, it wasn't like enough like to make a full game, you know. He was like still learning it. In fact, he kept like giving up on Construct and coming back to Multimedia Fusion because he knew Multimedia Fusion so much from all the years he spent with it. But I tried to like beg him to stop going back to Multimedia Fusion 2 because it's so bad.
I'll take your word for it. Like, all right then. So I'll see if my colleagues here have any further questions for you at this juncture.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
All right. Andre, it was good having you on the program and being with us here today. I liked what I saw here today, and interested in having you back on the program when Awaking Sarah is much closer to release, because it's kind of hard to really get into the meat and bones of that when it's in such an early state of development. But until then, has the Steam page gone up yet?
Yeah, it's up with the demo.
Okay. So at the very least, you can go out on the Steam Steam and download the demo, as well as wishlist the game today. Wishlisting really helps game
helps
developers these days. And if you enjoyed tonight's interview, as always, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell here on Twitch or on YouTube, where the archives go, to keep notified of when we go on air in the future. So with that in mind, Petty, play us to the next segment. All right. Welcome to the topic of discussion for the week. This time, we're back to talking about boomer shooters
Oh man.
because one of the cultiest of them just got its long awaited and anticipated by certain segments of people re-release or remastering. That is Rise of the Triad. So Rise of the Triad is kind of, I guess the best way to put it, top of the bottom, bottom of the top, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
That is to say, when you're talking about these seminal works of 90s FPSs, what are you going to mention first? Doom, Wolfenstein 3D, Duke Nukem 3D, GoldenEye, Half-Life, those. Rise of the Triad, this is lying in the second string, if you will, right along, say, Shadow Warrior and Blood. Games that were not nearly as successful or influential, but still have their audience. I'm like, for reference, you can tell how well a first-person shooter did by the amount of ports it did or didn't get. And Rise of the Triad has seen no console release until, well, it's technically still hasn't seen a console release because there have been some unspecified. It was lot check holdups with the console versions of Rise of the Triad Ludicrous Edition.
Mm-hmm.
Because bug testing on consoles is a belabored affair. Right. But anyway, so Petty, did you ever play Rise of the Triad back in the day?
No. Apparently, what I was thinking of during writing room on Sunday was Strife.
Strife, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Granted,
like,
looking at both of them, I can kind of see why I got them confused. They're fairly similar.
They're fairly similar in their graphical design, but they are not similar in terms of their construction by any means. I will say right now, like Rise of the Triad, there is only one Rise of the Triad. Although there are actually many Rise of the Triads, this game had a weird release history. Because and that's kind of part and parcel of this is part and parcel of how Rise of the Triad did things. Because instead of doing the at the time traditional release of hey, let's take the first episode of a game and make that the shareware version, they went out and made a completely new and original package for the shareware called The Hunt Begins. They made a prequel episode that wasn't included in the main game, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
This is the kind of mania we're dealing with here, because it only gets nuttier as you parse down the details.
Narrator, this is the sane part.
Yeah, I'm like, because to answer the question like Alex had on Sunday, no, this does not have anything to do with actual triads or anything to do with China or East Asia in general. This actually has to do with a cult called the Triad, even though there are 4 episodes. And though I guess it still makes sense because one of the bosses is a robot. But how to explain this game to someone who hasn't played it? Well, okay, it's Wolfenstein 3D, but manic, or
was literally the original one. This was literally built on the Wolfenstein 3D engine.
Yeah, I was
Yes,
just about
But
to say that.
it had some interesting innovations.
You can become
Yeah.
a dog.
Yeah.
That's the coolest part.
Yeah. You could be. That was dog mode, which was a take off of God mode, and they do have actual power up called God mode because God mode in other FPSs that was a cheat. Here it's a power up,
Hmm.
and the dog mode operated like God mode, except you could you turned into a dog and you tore out throats and barked and made people explode.
It
Like,
was weird.
yeah, it's like, how many ways can I describe the weirdness of this game? Like,
I think the human language lacks enough verbiage for that.
I'm not sure about that. I'm like, it's more like it's best to watch the Civi 11 videos to get the details. But another good example is this item called the priest porridge or the monk meal in its upgraded form. Like you can take a rocket launcher or a missile weapon, and you can heat up the porridge for more energy. It's just you know. There's no other FPS I can think of that would do something like that. Like,
Hmm.
and like other things like the weapon loadout, something that could be seen as a grand innovation years ahead of its time. Like,
Hmm. We didn't start seeing
um,
weapon loadouts till I want to say like Call of Duty.
Halo at the very least.
Halo didn't have weapon loadouts till Reach.
I'm like, well, it's the one that had the two weapons. That populates two. You can only carry two weapons and grenades.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a full loadout like
Mm.
like it is here, but still, this is taking after. I would say it would be taking after that, except this game predates Halo by a good 6 years. Like, and it's just doing like it's probably doing this just to be weird because instead of having a menagerie of weapons, an arsenal, if you will, you can only have 4 weapons, and one of them is kind of a cheat because you have your single pistol, you have dual pistols. This is one of 2 games that introduced dual wielding pistols to the world. The other is Marathon, and they released on the exact same day.
Because of course they did.
Yeah, I'm like that. There's some Travada for you. Like, also both games introduced rocket jumping, like as a concept. I can't say it introduced rocket jumping into the wider world because once again, Rise of the Triad is an insanely cult FPS, and Quake was played by many more people. It's not the it's not just to be the first at something. It's that you actually have to influence people down the line in one way or another. And I'm not convinced Rise of the Triad had any actual influence. I'd give dual wielding to Bungie because once again, more people may not necessarily have played Marathon or the Marathon series, but they went on to do Halo, and they kept that idea in their mind. Anyway, so yeah, you get the dual pistols, you get the MP40, which is your machine gun weapon, and the thing here is all the bullet weapons they have unlimited ammo. Like, but the thing is, they only do so much damage. Like, it's actually fairly tedious to take down some enemies with them. Like, especially like when you get to the monks and the fucking triad enforcers. And finally you get the missile weapons, and of course they have to be wacky. Well, it's missile weapons and magic weapons. You get things like the drunk missile, which fires out a whole platoon of missiles, but they fly every which way because they're drunk. Or you got the split missile, which fires in two directions, left and right, but not ahead. Can you tell that this game is a bit wacky? I could go on. There's like the Excalibat, which is a magical bat. This game also has powered downs that are really fucking obnoxious. Things like
Are they permanent or temporary?
They are thankfully temporary, like Shroom Mode, which makes everything throb in that 2D first person way. Like you see this thing, you see that kind of effect in the build engine as well, but not as prominent. Oh god. Thankfully, you can turn that off in this edition because it does not look good. Or you got forget the term, but bouncy mode or like pinball mode, which, as you might guess, you bounce around like a pinball. Also, I would say that the biggest actual contribution to the FPS world that the Rise of the Triad delivered was the phrase "ludicrous gibbs," because there was not only does it actually use that verbiage, but there was a time when this was the most violent first-person shooter on the market. This was this was like the first FPS game to have like exploding chunks, and you could see eyeball stalks flying by. Also renowned was its multiplayer mode, because for a 1995 game, it had an insane amount of players, and it had you could play a multiplayer game up to 11 players. I'm trying to remember. I think Doom was like 4 or 8. This was a lot of people for 1995.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to impart how innovative some of the stuff was, because once again, this is the ultimate form of the Wolfenstein 3D, the id Tech 1 engine. And it was doing particle effects and stuff that not even like what Doom was doing, and not what the Doom engine would be doing until Hexen. That's how advanced this game was. Problem was, it was still the Wolfenstein 3D engine, and there were some technical problems that they could just not work around. That is to say, they were still stuck using right angles. Everything had to be 90 degrees here. As opposed to, Doom, which allowed for more angles. And, Doom also had some semblance of not verticality, but range, I suppose, that you didn't get in the Wolfenstein 3D engine. There were just things that the Doom engine could inherently do that no matter what you did with Wolfenstein 3D and its engine, you weren't getting past that. Still an admirable effort because it was like they were locked into to using the Wolfenstein 3D engine, because this was at one point going to be an official sequel to Wolfenstein 3D called Wolfenstein 3D 2: Rise of the Triad. And you can see it in the game still. Like a lot of the soldiers look like off-brand Nazis. For example, and the like the MP40 feels very Wolfensteinish. And like I said, I could go on about the various quirks of the game. Like this is one of, if not the first, FPS game to allow you to play as more than one character, and to allow you to play as actual characters. Like they're not deep characters, but they have names, faces, and even dialogue. Restrained to the cutscenes, but still, it's there. And I suppose I should talk a bit about the Ludicrous Edition, because this, this package is bringing everything under one roof. It's got the Hunt Begins prequel. It's got the main campaign. It's got the Extreme Rise of the Triad expansion pack, which don't play unless you like pain and suffering and misery, or are doing it for your YouTube channel.
Or both.
Yeah. Like, see, I'm looking at you, Civvy. But this also includes a brand new episode called The Hunt Continues. And they also restored and redrew all the characters. Like they got all the people back and rescanned them. Like, just an insane amount of effort. Also, in terms of the music, this package has the original soundtrack in a bunch of file formats. It's got the original MIDI. It's in ODL form, and it's even got the 2013 remake soundtrack, which is like the only thing you should ever want to experience from the remake. The remake is really bad.
From
And
what I've seen, yeah.
And I guess it was acceptable in 2013 because there was no boomer shooters like that. It's all fucking modern military stuff or derivative of that. These days we got a lot of boomer shooters. You don't need to play Rise of the Triad 2013. Anyway, so I, my personal experience with Rise of the Triad is I did play it back in the day. Like I remember it being in my high school computer lab, and honestly, I didn't really enjoy it. Like, I much preferred playing Heretic and Barney Stein 3D, even Terminal. I'm not even joking. For whatever reason, one of the computers in the computer lab had Barney Stein 3D installed.
People
a
are
modded
weird.
Yeah. Like, also, can you tell that the teachers in my school were very out of touch with technology?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I assume the teachers didn't really know how to use the computers.
No, and they didn't know how to use DOS either. I'm like,
That's the best.
I'm like, yeah, because I knew enough about DOS to where I could find the games and play them. Like, and Yeah, and we're talking about the late 90s. So this wasn't completely eradicated, especially since we're talking about schools and them getting advanced technology doesn't really happen. Um, anyway, point of order is I played Rise of the Triad, didn't really like it. Did get the Ludicrous edition, and my opinion hasn't changed. You know, I can respect this game for doing things so very differently than anything else, but it's like you're either gonna like its port or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
I find this game obnoxious and annoying to actually play. It's like, once again, I would much rather play Doom or Heretic. I would rather play it than Hexen. I'm with Civi on that. Fuck that game, and it's awful, awful level design. And hell, these days, Strife. Like, I rather enjoyed Strife. Rise of the Triad. It's not a bad game, but it's an ultra quirky affair that you have to put up with if you actually want to play it. So that's my stance on Rise of the Triad.
Mm.
Anyway, though, if you want to go and experience, they did a New Blood / Night Dive. I'm not exactly sure how the development duties worked on that. Did ask them, but Stephen was like, I'm not the best person. Like, apparently, New Blood on the PR stuff, which makes sense because I didn't get I got the PR stuff from New Blood, and not Night Dive, but it's a bit harder to coordinate with New Blood interview wise ever since David moved to New Zealand, because it's New Zealand. So anyway, so yeah, I think that'll about do it for this topic and indeed this episode of Fragments of Silicon. So coming up on the week ahead, we do have a new episode of Moonhawk Studios Presents happening in about 15, let's be honest, 30 minutes. No Friday show this week. And coming up on the Sunday reviews, we'll be having reviews of N2O, Nitrous Oxide, Ocean Horde 2, Knights of the Lost Realm, Defense Task Force, and Gourmet Warriors. So until then, I shall wish you good gaming.